In a world where women are often encouraged to excel in every role, from professional achievements to physical appearance, from personal growth to relational harmony, it seems that simply being good is never quite enough. Many of us have learned to carry an invisible weight, the pressure to always be composed, to always be competent, to always stay one step ahead. Day after day, we put on the mask of having it all together, smiling when we're tired, pushing forward when we're overwhelmed, and saying, "I'm fine," even when we're not. Praise and admiration may follow, but behind the compliments often lies a soul that is quietly exhausted. A heart that feels it must always be on, always prove, always please. Perfectionism doesn't knock with a loud bang. It creeps in silently, dressed as ambition, responsibility, or strength. But over time, it distorts our sense of self-worth, making us forget that we are allowed to rest. We are allowed to pause, to not know, to make mistakes. Being human means being in progress, not flawless. If you find yourself worn out from trying to meet an invisible standard, one that seems to shift higher every time you get close, you are not alone. This might not be a failure. It might be a sign that you've been trying too hard to be perfect in a world that rarely defines what enough truly means. And maybe, just maybe, it's time to redefine that for yourself. 1. What is perfectionism? Perfectionism is often misunderstood. It is not the pursuit of excellence or the desire to do one's best. It's the persistent belief that anything less than flawless is unacceptable. It's not about working hard. It's about feeling like you have to work hard all the time or else you're not enough. It shows up not only in goals and deadlines, but also in how we evaluate our self-worth. Even after reaching certain milestones, the feeling of fulfillment is fleeting. Instead of pride, there's pressure. Instead of joy, there's a quiet fear. What if this still isn't good enough? This mindset is particularly insidious because it's often praised. A woman who seems to have it all together is celebrated, organized, composed, high-achieving. But no one sees the internal dialogue behind the scenes, the overthinking, the guilt over rest, the anxiety that keeps her awake at night. Perfectionism isn't a personality quirk. It's a psychological weight. And that weight builds silently over time, convincing us that we can never slow down, never make mistakes, never show cracks in the surface. For many, it becomes a full-time performance. Every smile, every accomplishment, every moment of grace, all carefully managed to meet not only external expectations, but the unrelenting voice inside that says, "You must be better." Eventually, perfectionism becomes an identity. You're no longer just someone who wants to do well. You're someone who believes their value depends on doing everything perfectly, all the time. This isn't just exhausting. It's dangerous to our mental and emotional well-being. Perfectionism robs us of presence, creativity, and authenticity. It turns every opportunity into a test. It turns rest into a luxury. It turns self-compassion into a weakness. But the truth is, real strength doesn't come from having no flaws. It comes from having the courage to face those flaws with honesty and still choose to be kind to yourself. So the next time you feel like you're falling short, ask yourself, who decided what enough looks like? And what if you already are? 2. Why do so many women fall into this pattern? The roots of perfectionism in women are deep and often go unspoken. From a young age, not necessarily as children, but as adults stepping into the world, women receive countless subtle messages about what it means to be ideal. She should be competent in her career, graceful in her appearance, emotionally intelligent, supportive in relationships, independent but not distant, attractive but not vain, successful but not intimidating. The image is impossible, yet somehow we internalize it. These societal scripts don't need to be shouted to be powerful. They live in everyday expectations, in praise that sounds innocent. You do it all so well. You always seem so put together. Over time, these comments become mirrors. We start to believe we must be everything for everyone, all the time. And if we're not, we must at least look like we are. Family expectations often add another layer. In many homes, women are raised to be the emotional glue, the ones who hold it all together, who smooth over tensions, who put others first. There's love in that role, but also pressure. A woman may feel like she must always be nurturing, composed, and giving, even when she herself feels empty. And because these patterns are so ingrained, they feel normal. She may not even realize she's sacrificing herself for an invisible standard. Social media complicates this even more. We know that what we see online is curated, but it still impacts us. When you scroll through photos of other women looking flawless, balancing careers and families with a smile, posting glowing captions about gratitude and productivity, you can't help but wonder, why does it look so easy for them? This quiet comparison game fuels the feeling that you're constantly behind, even when you're doing your best. But here's the truth. No one can be everything, and no one should be. The expectations placed on women by society, family, and even themselves are often unrealistic. And perfectionism thrives in silence. It grows in the spaces where women feel they must be strong, but are afraid to say they're tired. The first step to healing isn't doing more, it's daring to do less, to question the standards, to rewrite the rules, to say, I'm enough even when I am not perfect. That's not failure. That's freedom. The silent consequences, when perfection becomes a burden. Striving for perfection often begins as a noble intention, a desire to excel, to do our best, to live up to potential. But over time, this pursuit can turn into a quiet weight, a pressure that presses inward rather than shows outward. Perfectionism doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers in every decision we make, in every moment we hesitate, in every breath we hold back. Losing connection with yourself. When the drive to be perfect becomes constant, many women begin to lose touch with their inner selves. Days are spent ticking boxes, meeting expectations, pleasing others, all while silencing what we truly feel or want. We smile even when we're tired, say yes when we mean no, and try to fit into images crafted not by us, but for us. Eventually, it becomes hard to tell where society's expectations end and our true selves begin. We get so good at playing a role that we forget we're allowed to just be. Emotional burnout. Behind the appearance of calm control, many are running on empty. The effort to always get it right at work, in relationships, in how we present ourselves is exhausting. There's a quiet panic that if we stop, everything will fall apart. Over time, this relentless effort leads to emotional burnout. Even small tasks feel overwhelming, and joy becomes harder to access. It's not because we're weak, it's because we're carrying too much for too long. Procrastination and anxiety. Ironically, the more we aim for perfection, the more likely we are to avoid doing things altogether. Why? Because when perfection is the only acceptable outcome, starting something can feel terrifying. The voice in our head says, if you can't do it perfectly, don't do it at all. So we delay, hesitate, hold back, not out of laziness, but out of fear. Opportunities slip by not because we didn't care, but because we cared too much. Difficulty in forgiving ourselves. Perfectionism also makes it hard to forgive ourselves for mistakes, for rest, for simply being human. There's a constant inner critic reminding us we should have done better, been more, tried harder. We replay past errors, magnifying them out of proportion. We deny ourselves kindness, thinking it has to be earned. But healing doesn't come from punishment, it comes from permission, the permission to pause. To be growing. Perfectionism doesn't always look like a crisis. Sometimes it looks like a woman who appears to have it all together, but feels like she's falling apart inside. It's not weakness that drives her exhaustion. It's the belief that being enough means never getting it wrong. The truth is, perfection was never the requirement. Wholeness was. And that only comes when we accept every part of ourselves, even the imperfect ones. The human view, doing well doesn't mean being perfect. You don't have to be perfect to be loved. You just have to be honest and kind to yourself. It's a simple sentence, yet it holds a truth that many of us, especially women, struggle to fully believe. We grow up internalizing messages, spoken or unspoken, that equate worthiness with flawlessness, success with self-denial, and love with conditions. And slowly, without realizing it, we begin to perform rather than live. We become experts at maintaining appearances, at managing expectations, and at doing everything right. But even when we do everything right, why does it still sometimes feel so wrong? The truth is, doing well, showing up, working hard, caring deeply does not require perfection. In fact, trying to be perfect often leads us further away from our own hearts. Somewhere along the way, many of us confuse self-improvement with self-erasure. We think becoming better means becoming harder on ourselves. We believe confidence is something we earn by constantly fixing our flaws. But real confidence doesn't grow in perfection, it grows in compassion. A confident woman is not someone who never makes mistakes. She's not someone who always has the right answers, never falters, never doubts. A confident woman is someone who knows how to love herself even when she falls short. She understands that her worth is not conditional. She allows herself space to feel, to falter, to pause. Confidence, after all, isn't the absence of uncertainty. It's the ability to hold space for uncertainty without collapsing under it. There's something incredibly powerful about accepting yourself as you are, not waiting until you're more successful, more polished, more disciplined, more anything, just you, here and now. A human being who sometimes gets tired, who sometimes needs help, who sometimes forgets how far she's come. When we accept that we are allowed to be human, we finally begin to breathe. We stop bracing ourselves against life and begin to live it more freely. We are allowed to be tired. We are allowed to be unsure. We are allowed to rest without guilt. These are not signs of weakness. They are signs of being alive. The more we deny our needs in the name of perfection, the more disconnected we become, not only from ourselves, but from the people around us. Vulnerability isn't a flaw, it's a bridge. And when we dare to be honest about where we are, even if where we are isn't perfect, we invite connection, not rejection. For so long, we've been taught that to be taken seriously, we have to hold ourselves together at all times. To be respected, we have to suppress emotion, ignore exhaustion, and outwork our doubts. But healing happens in the opposite space, in the softening, in the moments where we give ourselves permission to not be okay and realize that we are still enough. Being gentle with yourself is not the same as giving up. It's not complacency, it's courage. Because in a world that constantly demands more productivity, more achievement, more certainty, it takes strength to say, I am already enough, even in progress. Sometimes we wait to feel whole before we let ourselves rest. We wait to fix everything before we allow ourselves kindness. But maybe healing doesn't come after we've reached the finish line. Maybe healing begins when we stop running. No one ever said you had to earn your humanity. You were always allowed to be a work in progress. You were always allowed to need time, to take breaks, to change your mind. The idea that we must be complete before we are lovable or valuable is one of the deepest myths we carry, and unlearning it is one of the most important acts of self-love we can offer ourselves. Let this be a gentle reminder. You are not on your checklist. You are not your mistakes. You are not only as worthy as your productivity. You are a full, complex person with emotions, needs, desires, all valid, all allowed. You don't need to be anyone's idea of perfect to deserve peace. You don't have to be constantly improving to be worthy of love. Your softness is not a problem. Your imperfection is not a flaw. They are simply parts of being beautifully human. So if you find yourself tired from the pressure to always get it right, take a breath. Not because everything is fixed, but because you are allowed to pause even when things are still unfolding. If you're waiting for permission to be proud of how far you've come, this is it. And if you're wondering when you can stop trying to be perfect, maybe that moment is now. Because doing well is not the same as being perfect. And being human is more than enough. Breaking free from the pressure to be perfect. There comes a time in many women's lives when we realize that the pursuit of perfection has become less of a goal and more of a burden. It disguises itself as ambition, as responsibility, as care. But behind the mask, it often leaves us feeling drained, disconnected, and inadequate. The pressure to be everything at once, competent, composed, attractive, successful, agreeable, is a silent weight many carry. Yet, there's a quieter, wiser truth waiting to be embraced. We don't need to be perfect. We only need to be enough, and often, enough is more powerful than perfect. One of the first steps toward freedom is reframing what enough really means. Instead of holding ourselves to an impossible standard, we can start asking, what's the best I can do with what I have today? It's not about lowering expectations, but about aligning them with reality. Being good enough isn't laziness or mediocrity, it's the acknowledgement that growth is not linear, and that worth isn't measured by flawlessness. Some days we move forward quickly, other days we just manage to hold ourselves together. Both are signs of strength. This mindset shift is deeply supported by a practice of gratitude and self-recognition. In a world that is constantly telling us to strive for more, we rarely stop to reflect on what we've already accomplished. Taking a few moments each day to write down even the smallest victories, sending that email, getting through a tough meeting, or simply showing up despite feeling low, can shift. These actions are not insignificant. They are proof that we're trying, adapting, and persisting. Gratitude helps us reconnect with our journey instead of obsessing over a destination. Another critical element is letting go of comparison. As women, we are often subtly taught to measure ourselves against others, their careers, relationships, appearance, or social circles. But comparison is a trap. We only see the surface of other people's lives, yet we judge our own worth based on that surface. It's like comparing someone's filtered photo to our unedited reflection. When we look outward for validation, we lose touch with what truly matters to us. We forget our own progress and potential. We need to reclaim our focus, not as competition, but as compassion. Our story doesn't need to mirror anyone else's to be valuable. Equally important is learning to give ourselves permission, to rest, to fail, and to not have it all figured out. So many women tie their self-worth to productivity or perfection. We internalize the belief that we must always be doing something, fixing something, improving something. But the truth is, rest is not a reward, it's a requirement. Mistakes are not character flaws. They're part of the process. And needing help or taking a break doesn't mean we're broken. It means we're human. There's incredible strength in saying, I don't feel okay today, and that's okay. Admitting we're tired doesn't make us weak. It makes us honest. And honesty is the soil on which confidence grows. You don't become resilient by pretending you're invincible. You become resilient by allowing yourself to bend without breaking. By telling yourself, I've done enough today. I have enough today. Ultimately, freeing ourselves from the pressure to be perfect is not a one-time decision. It's a practice, a conscious effort we make each day to choose self-acceptance over self-judgment. It's about showing up for ourselves with the same grace we offer others. And it's about remembering that our value doesn't come from being ideal. It comes from being real. So, if you're feeling overwhelmed by the weight of unrealistic expectations, pause, breathe, ask yourself not what the world demands from you, but what you truly need. Maybe today you need to slow down. Maybe you need to say no. Maybe you need to celebrate a small win that no one else sees. Give yourself that permission. Because the world doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. It needs you to be whole. And most importantly, you need to know that you are worthy, not someday when you get it all right, but right now exactly as you are. Healing begins with compassion for ourselves. We are not unfinished projects waiting for perfection. We are not problems to be fixed or molds to be reshaped. We are human, living, feeling, and evolving at our own pace. Somewhere along the way, many of us internalize the belief that we must always strive to be better, to be more, to be enough for the world around us. But healing starts when we realize we were already enough, long before we tried to prove it. Being gentle with ourselves is not weakness, it's wisdom. It is the quiet strength of choosing kindness over criticism when we stumble. It is recognizing that growth does not require punishment. Real transformation happens not when we push ourselves harder, but when we soften into understanding. We don't always need answers. Sometimes we simply need space to breathe, to be, to exist without pressure. It's easy to believe that we must constantly chase improvement, that success, happiness, or peace is something to be earned only after we've fixed ourselves. But what if the real journey is not about fixing it all? What if healing is about returning to the version of ourselves that knew how to rest, how to trust, how to feel deeply without shame? What if courage is not found in always moving forward, but in sitting still long enough to listen to what we really need? You don't need to become someone else to be worthy of love, especially not your own love. There is quiet bravery in continuing to care for yourself on days when your confidence wavers. There is grace in choosing to be kind to yourself, even when old voices tell you otherwise. And there is deep healing in reminding yourself that you do not have to be perfect to be whole. So let this be your reminder. You are not broken. You are becoming. You are not behind. You are on your own path. And the most beautiful thing about your journey is not how flawless it appears, but how boldly and tenderly you choose to keep walking it. Even on the days that feel uncertain, you are not a project. You are a person. And you're allowed to grow, to change, to rest, to begin again, all in your own time, and always with love. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.